in my end, I'm more of a value add guy. So, and I don't do apartments. So I like I like short-term leases or leases that are coming up, because the prices are less and it's not based on income. And, I try when I buy something today, I try to just pay cash for it because it's easier. It's easier for it's easier for the seller who just wants to get out and is not interested in keeping it anymore. Or um it's easier for me because I don't want to deal with banks anymore. And because at some point um I have good cash flow, I save my money and then, I'm able to buy something. So every time I
Welcome to the 10-Minute Mogul Podcast. I'm Adam Zucker alongside my incredible wife.
I'm Randy Zucker, and we're here to revolutionize your real estate investing journey.
We built our success from the ground up through determination, courage, massive action. We created a portfolio of motels, multifamily properties, and renovate over 100 homes.
We understand the challenges other investors face and know firsthand how tough it can be to pivot in the real estate game and reach that next level. That's why we developed a powerful method to help you prioritize your time, maximize your life, and build legacy wealth.
Let's spend 10 minutes together to change your life.
Welcome to the 10-Minute Mogul Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Zucker, and I am joined today by Todd Leoni, known by many as the King of Commercial. I am so grateful to have you on, Todd. It wasn't easy to schedule this, so I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so
Glad to
Todd,
be here.
when we
Glad to be
spoke,
here.
you were going, yeah, when we spoke, you were going over your background. Can you introduce yourself to the audience? You're like a juggernaut in the industry.
I am. I had no idea. No, I got into commercial about 35 years ago. I started out selling HUD and VA foreclosures, and then I did a lot of government leases early on for GSA, and then I bought my first commercial property in 1990, and I've been doing that ever since. And when I say commercial, I mean not apartment commercial, not, multifamily. I did do multifamily, but I got out of it quickly because I just didn't like it. And then
And how
go ahead.
many units do you now own today?
Um, I probably have around 65 or 70 different properties all across the country.
Yeah.
And when you say units, I'm talking about different pieces of property because I don't, and a lot of them are single tenant. I like the single tenant type of properties.
Yeah, I'm so used to being in hospitality, so we call it units or rooms. But that's my next point is the distinction between commercial and there's lots of different subsets. There's, what you mentioned, like multifamily or hospitality. Could you just explain to us really, the niche you're in and what commercial real estate is?
Well, I kind of cover the whole gamut other than residential. The things that I like to do really are buy single tenant properties and lease them out. And a lot of times that has included a motel. I have three different hotel motels right now, and they're not large, but they I lease them to different people, and they pay me rent every month, and I bought them, very inexpensively years ago. And now I just get, rental income from them, so I don't have to manage them. So that's the type of thing that I like to do. That's my girlfriend walking by.
Hi, girlfriend. Um, that's smart. So, like your shirt, where you are now, it's in North
Yes, this is my
Carolina, right by
yeah.
Asheville.
Oh, this place is a very special place, and I have a main house here, and I have 11 cottages that surround the main house. This was my summer camp, and I bought it. Well, I bought this inn. This was an inn for years, and I bought it about this one about 18 years ago. But the summer camp I bought 35 years ago, And so this was on the same grounds as the summer camp, and I bought it. So now I've spent all my summers here for the last 18 years. I brought my kids up here, and this one has never been a money maker. And this one, I have a lady that runs it. She takes good care of it. But it's kind of like my second home. And we rent out the main house and all the cottages. So it's really a special place.
Yeah, and real estate's a long game. So eventually, I imagine if you give it to your kids one day, they'll eventually you cash out. So it might not be a money maker now, but it will be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this one, and I don't have, what was very important to me is, early on when I first started was to buy as much as I can, take as much, and I was young because I was 22 when I started, and or 23, and you know, I took on a lot of risk and a lot of debt, and I was in, South Florida most of the time, and things just started going up. And at that age, I wasn't really afraid to take any of the debt. And anytime I got to the finish line where I paid something off, because I rarely sold something, unless there are some that are losers, but for the most part, I've stuck with most of all my properties, and I've kept them and I've paid them off, and it's been very helpful, even during the recession. I lost tenants, but I didn't lose buildings because I didn't cash out. I'm a very conservative investor, and not and that doesn't work for everyone. Everyone likes to get the cash and refinance and take the money out and buy other stuff. But I didn't run my life that way. It was important to me to you know have something at the end and live comfortably. I'm 58 years old now, and it's been really good. It's supported my family. There's no better business in this world. I don't care what it is. There's just no better business. And during the pandemic, there was people were struggling, and sometimes you have to go in and you help people, and the good ones you help, and the ones that have been you know um you know not great tenants, you do what you can to help them, but if they're not going to help themselves, then at some point you got to just move on. And then during the last 4 years of inflation, I mean, all the real estate that I've kept, had taken a ride on inflation, so it's been very good for us. And we've been able to raise rents, and it's been and it's not just because we wanted to raise rents. We've had to do it for purposes of paying our bills. Our insurance went up, our taxes have gone up, so everyone was feeling that crunch. So, but for the most part, the buildings today are worth so much more because it costs so much more to build them. So if you have something that's existing, where it used to cost $100 a foot to build something, now it's 300, So maybe your property's worth 250, because it's not new, you know. So
What are some things
and
that you look for when you're about to buy an investment? What advice do you have? Like, even just what you just said about the build cost, that's something I consider when I'm looking at a property. I'm looking at a 40 unit in Missouri, which is a new area for me. But I looked at my price per, unit, because it's a hospitality building, and I'm thinking to myself, I would never be able to build it at this. It would cost me 3 times more to rebuild this. So, what are some of the things you
absolutely,
look at?
you're right. You're right. Well, in my end, I'm more of a value add guy. So, and I don't do apartments. So I like short-term leases or leases that are coming up, because the prices are less and it's not based on income. And, I try when I buy something today, I try to just pay cash for it because it's easier. It's easier for the seller who just wants to get out and is not interested in keeping it anymore, or um it's easier for me because I don't want to deal with banks anymore, and because at some point I've um I have good cash flow, I save my money and then, I'm able to buy something. So every time I accumulate a little bit of money, I'll, buy something for, with the money. I don't want it in the bank. Money in the bank is wasted, It doesn't a real estate person's money should be on the street. And if you'll ask any real estate person, they usually have very little cash in the banks because it's safer on the street because if the bank goes bust, you're screwed, you know.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah, it's
and
kind of
I've
a
I've stuck to
that
it.
everyone has in our industry. Like, never ask a investor, like a real estate investor, for money. Like, they just won't have it on them.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
They most real estate most real estate investors go to the bank. The majority of them will go to the bank and ask for a loan, to get, and there's nothing wrong with that. I hate loans though. I just don't like them. They were helpful in the beginning when I first started, but at this point, I would rather try and buy stuff, for cash if I can.
And do you ever do cash out refinance strategies? So, like, if someone listening doesn't understand, like, you bought it, you've now had it for 15 years, it's worth triple, you can then go to the bank and get it appraised and, take some equity
I
out.
I I don't really do that. What I have done is I've had lines of credit on my buildings where, if I need to buy something, I will, I'll have those lines of credit just in case I found a deal that I really just want to have. You know what I mean? So I just won't I don't like if I have something that's coming due for, I'm just going to use this as an example, as $500,000. Um I won't and let's say it's worth 2 million. I won't take a $1 million mortgage on it. I did that one time I had a partner. I don't really have partners anymore, but I did have a partner and he wanted me to cash out, he wanted the cash. So I did it and it was right before the recession and then the tenant went into bankruptcy and then we had to go to the bank and pay the bank off, and he screwed us because I didn't really want the money because I didn't need it, you know? So, and then the building was worth a lot less, So, I don't
Yeah.
really do that. But it does work for a lot of people, you know? It does work for a lot of people and I think financing is very good and it's very important and if you're young enough you should take that risk, because it's going to help you. You get a very good you get write-offs from it. You get you get to pay it slowly and interest rates seem to be coming down. I think they just cut a half did they cut a 0.5% today? I think they
Yes.
did.
Yeah,
That's
they
that's
literally
so
just
great.
announced it, like, while we were getting on here. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think it's great. I think it's going to be great. For whichever president gets in, and I'm not getting into politics here, but whichever one, I think, there's a shortage of single family homes. And I think developers or people who build houses or people that buy and flip houses could possibly get a tax incentive to put more houses out there. And I
Mhm.
think I think it's a great thing. So. I'm actually building a couple of houses here right now. I'm not a developer and I hate developing, but I've had this land forever and I wanna get rid of it. So I'm, selling I'm building I have about 8 houses that right now I'm building two, but I have another 6 lots that I'm gonna build on.
So that's your value add.
Well, yeah, but that's my value add. But I've had
Yeah.
this land for 35 years.
Yeah.
I mean, but a value add to me would be like, and usually, and I love the brokers because, and I'm a real estate broker myself, but I love dealing with the brokers because they bring me all the deals, and I never ask to stick my hand in their pocket. When they call me and they say to me, "Hey, I have this deal," I listen to them. A lot of times they call me for listings, and I won't. I just say, listen, I'm not interested in selling. And if they keep on asking me for a listing, then I end up ending the call. But the brokers who bring me deals, I'm very grateful for them, and I don't. it's very rare that I find one that I like because, the good ones they keep themselves or they give it to their brother-in-law or their parents or whatever, you know? You know how that goes.
Yeah.
So,
So
but
I
I
guess
get they
what's your
get through
advice?
something. What's my
I was
advice
going
on
to
what?
ask on how you build good relationships with these brokers so they do come to you first with a deal.
Um, I think you got to be honest with them, and you got to tell them right away, find me something, and if you find me something, I'll do it because the brokers come back to me. There's a lot of brokers that won't go back to, and I've never screwed anyone. I don't want to take anyone's money. I don't, everyone should be able to make money. And I think that the more you give in a deal, the more you're going to get back, and they're all going to come back. Um, I've made a lot of good relationships with brokers over the years, and it's been a really good ride. And I get a lot of times they call me back and they say, "Hey, I have this deal," but then they get to know what I like, and and then they won't call me unless I have something. One lady called me, I swear to God, today. She called me. She says, "Hi, we spoke about a year ago, and we talked about, you know, uh, how I could help you with your properties and this and that." And I said, we spoke about a year ago, and I remember everyone. I said, what about? And she was going scripted. She went on the script that, I see you have a lot of properties here, and how can we help you, dispose of them and this and that. Remember we had that conversation? I said, no, you never spoke to me. She says, yes, we did. We spoke. And I said, no, you didn't. I said, what? And then I got nasty with her, and I said, what do you want? And she was like, she didn't know what to say because, she was not honest. Because I would have remembered a conversation because I would have cut her off because I never sell my properties. And I told her, I said, I'm a broker. What do I need you for? I could sell these. I don't need you to sell them. I can put them on MLS. I can market them myself. I don't need any broker to do anything, and I do sometimes I like to use a broker, you know, did I lose you? Okay.
No, nothing.
I do like to use a broker sometimes when I'm selling something, which is very rare. It's always important to use a third party, because they're going to deliver the message differently than I would. Like, if someone comes in and gives me an offer on something that I just don't like, I could kind of tell them, stick it, and the wrong way, so the message is probably better delivered by a third party and to make a deal done if you really want to get it done because my properties are like my children, and would you sell your children?
For the right price. No, I'm just kidding.
Right, right.
Yeah, it's a good
I
point. You
get I
can't
get
get,
emotional. I don't like to
yeah.
sell. I just don't like to sell it,
Yeah, you
so
can't get emotional in this game, And I'm the same way. I'm a very emotional person. I like to be able to like tell a story and convey the emotion in the properties, but usually
right,
it's all just like a numbers game. They just want to know like the rent roll and what my expenses are and what the net will be and that's it. And it makes me upset sometimes. It'll be like,
right,
"But look how nice this property is and I had the
right,
like stayed here with my family. They don't care."
right, right. That's
Yeah.
right. You got it. Well, listen, you got to just do your own thing, and and then just every deal is different,
Yeah.
and you'll negotiate out, if you really need to get rid of something, you do it, because it's either a headache or a loser or whatever. And I've had very few in my career. I mean, it's been a very, very good ride. And the best part is I love my job. I mean, and I do it leisurely now, and I don't have to take every deal. I've never really seen a real estate deal I didn't like, but I'm choosy now, like I saw a deal the other day that it was a monster, a true monster. And, maybe 10 years ago I would have taken it down. But, I don't want to, now I'm working smart, not hard, and that's really the key. If you can find that part in your life to work smart and not hard, you'll see that it's a great thing because, you have the time to do everything, my kids are all grown and I get to do whatever I want at this point.
And where could people find you? Do you even want people contacting you? Unless they probably have a good listing that they want you to sell, or if they have a good deal
Uh,
for you to buy.
yeah, they can call me anytime. They can call on my they can actually email me at Todd Todd at leonicompanies.com, and that's Leoni companies one word with an ies.com.